What's up, guys? It's your guy Tyler from Super Squad D, and today it is finally happening. I'm talking Batman the Animated Series reboot. We've only been waiting for it for like 18 years. So excited about the news. Now, I want to share with you guys a little bit about why we think this reboot is happening. So, Kevin Smith, who's an all things comic book aficionado, as well as a director and has a lot of connections inside Hollywood, broke the news not long ago that he has a source that has confirmed that Batman the Animated Series reboot is indeed happening and is at the works at HBO Max. Now, Kevin Smith, besides having a lot of connections, is a reliable source because he also broke the news about Batman Soul of the Dragon a little bit early, and supposedly it's the same source. So I am just super thrilled about this idea that Batman the Animated Series is returning, and I wanted to jump in today and talk about what I hope will happen, my hopes, dreams, wishes, and I brought someone special to talk about it with me. Before I bring this guy in, if you haven't done it already, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell so you can be in tune with all things Super Squad D. Now, the guest I have for you today, he is the man, the myth, the legend, the Minister of Comics himself, Batman the Animated Series aficionado, and all things Batman. He runs an extremely popular bi-weekly Batman show called Batterdays. I'm talking about the Minister of Comics himself, Mr. Taylor Brown. Taylor, thanks for joining me, man.
Happy to be here.
So let's talk about Batman the Animated Series, and let's just jump into it. Here's what I want to know from you first, okay? Do you want a reboot or a revival?
Well, it's like I was telling you before we even started shooting, is that I'm of two minds about this show. Wanting it to happen, wanting it to just be a rumor, or wanting it to become a reality. Because, in my opinion, Batman the Animated Series is the perfect distillation of Batman the character. I think it's a classic. Some episodes are way better than others, but there are no bad episodes. There's just lesser episodes. And so trying to come back to it again, can they really recapture that magic and get that lightning in a bottle again? Or is it going to kind of sully the whole reputation of this series? So I'm kind of two minds about it, to be honest.
That's interesting. That's a good point. It is such a classic. And oftentimes when shows come back or are rebooted, man, they can disappoint, right? Because we have such high expectations based off of how they were before that they might disappoint. So if it does come back, do you want to see a complete reboot where just they start from scratch and they recast people, or they don't recast people, but they start all over? Or do you want to see it pick up somewhere, maybe right after season 3, which was the end of the original series run? Or do you want to see with like the new Adventures of Batman and Robin? What's your take on that?
Well, if it's going to be a reboot, it's not really Batman the Animated Series. It would just be a new Batman show, which I'm totally okay with, just a new Batman show in general, because there really hasn't been one in a while. There was Young Justice, and that had Batman in it, but it wasn't a Batman-centric show. I think the last Batman-centric show was Batman Brave and the Bold or Beware the Batman. So there hasn't been one in a while. So if I had to choose between a reboot and a revival, I'd rather have a revival. But it could be interesting to kind of have it be focused on a different aspect of the Batman universe. Like they're having that Gotham Knights video game coming out in the near future, maybe focusing on Nightwing and Robin and Batgirl. That could be an interesting way to go about it, instead of a show just focused on Batman.
Yeah, that's super interesting that you bring that up, because I'm a little bit split. I mean, a reboot would be a clean way to start it, but a revival, I think, would be the most desirable for me as a fan of the show and a fan of the character of Batman, because I feel like there's a lot more stories they could tell, and I don't want to see the stuff they already did in the series thrown out, but I do see a lot of strengths and a lot of strong points to doing a reboot. One of the things you mentioned was that seeing some fan favorite characters maybe return in a more significant role. Before we get to that, I want to know, tell me about the cast, all right? There's some really famous cast members from this show. You know, we got Mark Hamill as the Joker, who is just, he is the Joker. I don't know. I know everybody loves Heath Ledger. He was amazing, but Mark Hamill's my Joker. Like, he was just perfect in that role. Obviously, Kevin Conroy is, I think, the best Batman of all time.
He is Batman, in my opinion.
Yeah, he is Batman, right? And that's partially because I grew up with him as a kid, but who who do you think should absolutely come back? I know Paul Dini played obviously an instrumental role in creating the series and the direction of it. Who do you think needs to come back with this reboot or revival, in your opinion?
Well, the rumor is that Bruce Timm is involved, and I think he is the main part of the behind-the-scenes aspect that needs to be involved, and Paul Dini, because he wrote all of the best episodes, in my opinion, of the original run. Alan Burnett, who was also instrumental, he's retired recently, though, so I'm not sure if he'll come back. But Paul Dini and Alan Burnett did co-write a Batman The Adventure Continues series based off the same continuity, and actually featured Jason Todd, I believe. So that could be an interesting angle for the show, introducing Jason and how he fits into this whole mythos of the Timverse. That could be an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, I think those people that you mentioned on the creator aspect, I think all of those people are really clutch. I also think the voice actress for Harley Quinn, who I believe was Tara Strong, she's got to come back too. Well,
Tara Strong, she was Batgirl.
Batgirl, I'm sorry.
And she's done Harley in different incarnations.
Okay. I don't recall the voice actress's name for Harley, but she was perfect. Obviously, Harley Quinn was created for the series, and she's been one of the most important Batman characters ever made, and certainly amazing that she came from a TV show.
And I think it'd be interesting to kind of see her in a different way, because throughout the show, she was kind of hot and cold with the Joker. It'd be kind of nice to see her be totally split from the Joker, because she's been split from the Joker in a lot of different incarnations, like the Harley Quinn animated show, which I know we both really enjoy, Birds of Prey. So it'd be nice to see her kind of advance and have more character development in this revival if it does actually happen.
Yeah, I love the idea of getting into some of the story aspects and the story beats that we'd like to see happen. I know you weren't as big of a fan of the New Adventures of Batman and Robin compared to Batman the Animated Series, which was the 4th season of the show.
I'm a big fan. I just like the original run of episodes better. The redesign is good for the most part. There are some characters I don't love with the redesign, like the Joker and his black coal eyes. I just don't really like that. I think I miss the yellow teeth. I miss the more color on the face. But to be honest, that is more of Bruce Timm's style. It's more in line with the Justice League, JLA Unlimited. It's more in line with Batman Beyond. So they're not going to go back to that original house style. They're going to go to the rebooted style.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And one of the things that I loved was we got the younger Robin, and in that we got Nightwing, who was aged up out of the Robin role.
Yeah, no more mullet for Dick Grayson if he comes back.
no more Dick Grayson mullet.
It's not the 90s anymore.
You bring up an interesting point about Jason Todd. That's definitely a fan favorite storyline of the last 2 decades of Batman. Really, since Jason's return, that would be really interesting to see them dive into that. One of the things that I would really like to see, one of the things I loved about the original animated series was there was so much strong storytelling and character development and character growth. I know we could spend hours on just what our favorite episodes are and our favorite character growth, but I would love to see more of the Bat family. So we got some Batgirl, and we got obviously young Robin, we got Tim, and we got Nightwing, but I would really love to see a lot more of the Batman family explored in this new reboot / revival, because I think that's a really strong aspect of Batman, and that's something that I think that given another 20 years or so of development of all the Bat related characters, it certainly seems like there's a lot that they could pull from that. How do you feel about that?
I think a good way to go about it might be to start after the flashback events of Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, where, spoiler alert, a lot of bad things happen to Tim Drake, and that kind of breaks down the whole Bat family. Because the actor who played Alfred is passed. I'm pretty sure the actor who played Jim Gordon is passed. So fast forwarding a little bit might be helpful. So you want to recast. I don't want to recast these really important characters, but those voices that are firmly fixed in my mind. So I think maybe jumping forward a little bit, and it'd be like a setup to Batman Beyond. It's almost like the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman before he retires. That could be really interesting. Yeah,
that could be great. And I think there's so much potential for a Batman series. Batman is such a great character with such a long, rich history of good storytelling. Like you mentioned, there's a big gap of knowledge there between what we know happens in Batman Beyond, There's a lot of things that happen in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, which I believe is set in the Timverse.
It is.
But I don't think that there's anything that happens in there that would necessarily be necessary to reference in the animated series itself. I don't think there's any major storylines that we would have to have covered or recapped.
You never have to watch any of the other shows to understand the show that you're watching. It makes it a much richer experience, especially for Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
But all the shows are self-contained enough that you get the general gist and you feel like you're absorbed into this world.
Exactly. I think for me personally, as long as we have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, whatever they give us will be perfect. Honestly, whatever they give us, I'll be super happy with.
I don't know. The Batman and Harley Quinn movie had Kevin Conroy and Bruce Timm, and you didn't like that movie.
That's true. You bring up a good point. I wasn't a big fan of that film. But in terms of animated series, the last thing that I want to touch on before we get out of here is it's obviously rumored to be hitting HBO Max. Now, HBO Max, as we know, does not have to adhere to the standards that the original show had to adhere to, not only in maturity and content rating, but in show duration and length, because obviously now we have these streaming shows and these streaming services. How would you feel about, one, a more mature show, and two, about a time that was maybe a little bit longer of a run period per episode?
I think the 20-minute runtime was perfect for what they were trying to accomplish, and I would like to see that happen. Again, I think cartoons work best in that 20-minute format. I don't want to see them do like a mature, like 17-plus type of cartoon. This is made for both children and adults at the same exact time. It's a great show to watch with your kid, and you're going to enjoy it yourself. So I don't want to see them venture too far beyond that. Maybe like the Return of the Joker level, with some blood streaming out of the mouth, things like that, but nothing too intense. I don't want to hear any F-bombs. I don't want to see people getting their heads blown off. I still want this to be rooted as a family cartoon, not just for, sweaty 40-year-old men in their basements.
Totally agree. Absolutely agree. I think that's the fan base they're catering to by bringing this back is certainly our generation, because we were the ones who loved the show so much. But I do think a very important aspect of the show is to keep it family friendly, to bring in that new generation, for it to be something that transcends generations, where we can watch with our kids. And that is ultimately what's going to let it stand the test of time. The maturity level of the original show was so well done because it was mature enough for older people to enjoy and appreciate. And it was not so kiddish that it felt like it was made for little kids, like a lot of the cartoon shows today. But it was not too mature that it left kids behind. So it really struck that perfect balance of maturity, and I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think Return of the Joker is the most intense version from the Timverse, and that's probably the highest I would like to see it go in terms of graphic content.
Totally agree. Well, Taylor, Minster Comics himself, thanks for joining me today. Guys, let me know in the comments. I got to know, what do you want from a rebooted series? Do you want a reboot, a revival? And how excited are you? On a scale of 10 to 10, how excited are you that this series, our dreams, are finally coming true? Mentioned it before, guys. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe. We'll see you next time on Super Squad D, where the D stands for discussion. Yeah, discussion. Batman discussion.